Precision Neuromuscular Therapy has been teaching high-quality seminars across the country for over 20 years. Founded by Doug Nelson, PNMT uses problem-solving skills and precise treatment options to get powerful results for your clients. PNMT seminars focus on honing your assessment and palpation skills to precisely target the source of your client's pain while understanding the why behind the what. Meet us in a hands-on seminar or online in the PNMT portal and let us join you on your learning journey. Learn more at pnmt.org. Do you need help with marketing, new clients, or online reviews? Massage Book is your solution, streamlining all the challenging aspects of your massage therapy practice. This powerful software simplifies scheduling, payments, and marketing, allowing you to focus on what you do best, helping clients live better. Visit massagebook.com, create an account, and transform your practice today. Don't wait. Give it a shot today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ABMP podcast, a podcast where we speak with the massage and bodywork profession. I'm Rachelle Clauson.
And I'm Nicole Trombley. Rachelle and I are longtime massage therapists, and we write the Anatomy for Touch column for Massage and Bodywork magazine.
We are so excited about our upcoming fall workshops. This October, we have 2 workshops coming. The first one is our flagship course, Journey into the Matrix, the Fascial System. 3 days of studying fascia in the classroom, in the dissection lab, and back at the massage tables. We designed this class specifically for massage therapists for you to better understand the anatomy of a very underrepresented system of the human body that you just happen to work with every single day.
The second course we're teaching is a new course we are so excited about. It's a 4-day deep dive in the dissection lab here in San Diego. It's called the Dissection Lab Intensive. This is a new course we're launching. It's mostly for our students who've already been through the journey into the matrix. We're going to take people 4 full days. We're going to go from skin through the superficial fascia, through the fat, through the deep fascia, seeing as much of the body as we can from surface to deep, all from a massage therapist's perspective.
You'll work in teams, you'll be guided. You don't have to have dissection experience in order to take this because that's part of the training as well. So if you're interested in fascia, if you're interested in anatomy, and if you're interested in just learning in a really fun environment where we bring a lot of art and a lot of really great discussion and practical application, this is the class for you.
And we're going to drop links to both those workshops in the show notes.
And part of our fascination with the fascial system is bringing lesser known fascial anatomy to you guys. And that's what we're planning on doing today as we talk about something called the myofascial expansion.
Okay, I just have to say, before we talk about myofascial expansions, Rachelle, this term myofascial, I've been hearing ever since I started massage school. And I kind of think I know what it is, but what is myofascial? Like when we say that, what are we talking about?
I mean, it's more than one thing. And I think that's why it's a little bit confusing because it's a technique, it's a brand, but it's also an anatomy. And so the anatomy is what we really want to learn more about and understand. And we can break that term down into its components. You've got myo and you've got fascia. So it's where the muscle and the fascia have a relationship in the body.
So is this like when we talk about fascia is a sausage casing wrapping around every muscle?
I mean, that's a good beginning point. And I would say for our beginning understanding of it, it's something that is true. But I think you know that there's a little more to the story.
More than sausage.
Yeah, it's more than sausage. Or I was talking about like a loaf of bread in a plastic bag. There's so much more going on. And so I think that's why we really want to talk about this topic today. Because it's like, yeah, massage the fascia, massage the muscle. But for what purpose? If you really understand how fascia anatomy works, what's going on with the whole story, not just the substances, but how it's hooked in to the feeling system of the body, to the coordination and moving system of the body, you'll get a much better picture as to why it's important to incorporate it into your body work.
Okay, that sounds good. I like feelings. I like moving.
Well, let's talk about starting with the more than muscles and bones.
So we have a traditional understanding of how movement happens and the roles that muscles and tendons and bones play in movement. And the story goes like this. A muscle contracts, pulls on its tendon, which pulls on a bone, and that creates movement. But Rachelle, I have to honestly say, when we are in the dissection lab, so like theory aside, but like when we're in the dissection lab with these tissues and you've been dying to see your favorite muscle.
Mm-hmm. If only it were so clean, right?
If only it were so clean. And sometimes, when you first go in the dissection lab, you think, oh, that's because I'm not good at dissecting. And maybe you're not. Where like, and it's like, is it my fault? Is it just right?
I didn't reveal the right tissues the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the picture that we're talking about. And I know you don't have visuals of this, but we'll try to paint this like word picture for you, is that once you get beneath the skin, what you see is a whole network of connection. And you see things that you maybe imagined as having separation that just simply don't. There's connections in way more places than muscle through tendon to bone. So let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts of myofascia, since this is really where we're leading with this story. And specifically this concept of myofascial expansions. I wonder if we can start with a definition.
One of the fascia researchers who talks most that I've read on myofascial expansions is Carla Stecco, and she's a orthopedic surgeon and a neuroanatomist based in Padua, Italy. And she defines myofascial expansions this way. This is the official definition from her book. The term myofascial expansions indicates each connection that originates from a skeletal muscle or its tendon that inserts into the aponeurotic fascia.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that seems clear.
But what's aponeurotic fascia?
Good question. Well, let's see if we can just break this down in a simple way. So there's a lot of fascia. I mean, you've heard me. I always say, which fascia where? Fascia is a big system. But we can kind of group different fascias into categories. And the two primary categories that we can group deep fascia into are aponeurotic and epimysial. Do you recognize the word epimysial?
I do.
Sounds a little bit like epimysium, right? And the epimysium is that sausage wrapping we were talking about earlier. It clings to a particular individual muscle, just one muscle. It's its outer wrapping, which, by the way, is more complex than that because it actually goes and dives into all of the individual fibers. So you can't just peel it off like it's a wrapping, but it still gives you a good idea of this external container that gives a muscle its form and its shape. Well, there's something else that's called aponeurotic fascia that is a lot thicker, a lot stronger, and its primary role has to do with force transmission and separating and containing groups of muscles. So the groupings of muscles on the limbs you may have actually already interacted with if you've ever heard about the thigh's anterior compartment, medial compartment, posterior compartment.
Oh, right.
These three compartments are defined by something. What they're defined by is a aponeurotic fascia, grouping groups of muscles.
Well, and I have a question, right? So when I certainly have heard the term aponeurosis before. Is aponeurotic the same as the lumbar aponeurosis?
So great question and good ear, because the word for aponeurotic fascia, making it an adjective, is really taken from the noun of aponeurosis. An aponeurosis is a flat tendon, right? So the flat tendons you tend to find more on the trunk than on the limbs. But these flat tendons converge and merge with each other in two primary areas. There's two hubs. One's on the back, recognized and known as the thoracolumbar fascia, and one's on the front, called the, any guesses?
Is that the rectus sheath?
It is. So it's also a thicker fascia, which is a convergence of muscles, flat tendons, when they come together. So now we still have a grouping of, or I should say a defining of groups of muscles, but in kind of a different arrangement. So you can kind of see the difference then is that an aponeurotic fascia is going to be thicker. It's going to have more to do with the movement system of the body, and it's going to have more to do with containing groups of muscles as opposed to epimysial fascia, which is going to be a thinner fascia, more related to individual muscles.
Okay, let's read this definition again, see if that makes more sense. The term myofascial expansion indicates each connection that originates from a skeletal muscle or from its tendon that inserts into the aponeurotic fascia.
Wow, right? Okay, so how about some examples, yeah? Okay, let's make this tangible. So aponeurotic fascias on the arm and on the leg kind of resemble a long sleeve or a long stocking. So we talked about on the trunk, it's a little different. It's more like a hub of fascia that's in the belly and then the low back. But as far as when it comes to the sleeves and the stockings, it's really easy to kind of give you some visuals to make this anchor into your knowledge base already. The fascia of the arm or of the upper limb is called brachial fascia from shoulder to elbow, and it's called antebrachial fascia from elbow to fingertip. So the brachial fascia is the aponeurotic fascia that several muscles insert into via a myofascial expansion. Ready? They are the following: pectoralis major, trapezius, latissimus dorsi. These are the primary three. So if you can picture where you have these muscles that originate on the torso and then insert into the humerus, they also have an expansion that doesn't insert into the bone, but inserts into that fascial sleeve that envelops all the muscles of the upper arm.
I had not heard of that before until I started studying fascia.
I know, I hadn't either. And it's really interesting because in the dissection lab, you can really see this. I guess the question is, why haven't we seen it in other places, right? It's not something that's emphasized in the anatomy books. Usually it's cut away and you're just looking at the muscles going to the bones and that's it. So this thinner, kind of translucent, more membranous-like expansion that comes off of these muscles is just simply cut away and leaving only the tougher tendons behind.
You know, when we talk about the dissection lab, people have actually seen these type of fascial insertions, muscle fascia connections, for a long time, but they were often really dismissed as flukes, like an anatomical variation. Oh, look at this little curiosity. It just happens to be this particular cadaver that we're working on. But we now know that this has been systematically studied enough that these are present all the time. And not only are they always present, but it's in a precise manner. They're not random. They show up in the same way every time.
So it's something I feel like we should know about. And amazing that it's been left out of our schooling for so long. So let me ask you this. We kind of know now what a myofascial expansion is. We have some examples of where they live. What about what they do? Like, what's the function of a myofascial expansion? And this gets us kind of bigger into the topic as to why we care.
This is obviously a really important question. Function's always a really important question. But it's also interesting because myofascial expansions both clarify and kind of muddy the waters about what the muscle story is, right? So we've got that traditional, right?
Yeah.
We've got that traditional story of muscle contracts, pulls in the tendon, pulls in the bone, movement's created. And now we know that when a muscle contracts, it's also pulling on fascia, right? So there's something else that's going on in the story here.
And the reasons why it would do that kind of live in several different categories. Number one, it is actually a force amplifier, specifically in areas of these myofascial expansions that have been studied quite a lot. One of them we recently wrote about, and it's about the lacertus fibrosus, which is a myofascial expansion of the bicep brachii.
And this lacertus fibrosus is actually so interesting because it's one of those myofascial expansions that dissectors couldn't ignore. And we can actually go back in our anatomy books and you will see it there. Even though it's not really talked about when we talk about the biceps movement story, it's there in the anatomy books. They couldn't ignore it.
I've even seen it in drawings that are simplified, almost cartoon drawings, like of the muscles, that you'll still see that
It's
extension.
still there.
Yeah, and it's listed. So can you tell us about that? Wasn't there a study that was done where they actually severed the lacertus fibrosus and saw a change in function?
Yeah, they wanted to compare. They're like, what is the lacertus fibrosus doing there? And what happens when we sever that lacertus fibrosus? So this was a question that was interesting to researchers, and they wanted to know, what role does the lacertus fibrosus play? So they did a study where in cadavers, so these were not in living humans, they tested the muscle efficiency of the biceps in intact arms and then in arms in which the lacertus fibrosus had been severed, so it couldn't play a mechanical role. And in the arms that did not have lacertus fibrosus intact, there was this pretty significant decrease in muscle efficiency. Do you remember this, Rachelle?
I do. A crazy amount of reduction.
Yeah, so that it actually played this mechanical role of helping the muscle be more efficient.
Meaning less force required in order to do the same action, right? And that's something that's important to most of us. It's like, the body always heads towards that. But it's so fascinating to realize that there are these structures within the body that help our muscles not to have to work as hard to be able to get more done, which is what I'd like to happen in every area of my life. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this other really important point, which is neuromuscular coordinator. So in order for this to happen, there has to be something that occurs when the fascia is stretched by the muscle. And if the fascia is stretched, what is it? Only amplifying force? Well, as it turns out, it's doing much more. And the reason for that has to do with its innervation. There's actually nerve endings that terminate within the fascia itself so that the brain is perceiving how much is going on in the way of stretch as this fascia is mechanically pulled upon by the muscle. And that's important because it's providing real-time communication. As muscles are contracting, it's stretching specific aspects of the fascia, which then gives that information to the brain as well as to the other muscles that are attached to that same fascia to provide neuromuscular coordination.
All right, let's give a fun example of what that actually looks like. You gave this really cool example in a workshop we taught. This is actually one of our online courses on deep fascia. That's you can find it on our website, anatomyscapes.com. But it was something about the furniture mover helping people coordinate arranging furniture. What was that?
Well, it's kind of a real world example for me because if you've ever been the person that is not moving the piece of furniture into place, but rather telling the person where it needs to go, then you're really representing the fascia innervated with nerves. Nerves are picking up information about what's going on. It's the one that can kind of, quote unquote, see what's happening, while the furniture mover is simply doing what it's told. And it's like pulling this way or pulling that way. So my visual for this was a guy that's bringing in a couch and he's carrying it and it says, "Do you want it here?" And the person who's directing the movement says, "No, a little more to the left. Oh, a little more to the right. Okay, now bring it forward. Oh, you know what? No, put it back over on that wall over there." So my example for using this is to remember that muscles simply contract. Fascia, in only specific cases over long periods of time, have contractile function, but mostly they don't contract. So it's not a part of the contracting process. It's a part of being able to be tethered to the contractile fibers of the muscle. But it's also the one that now is getting information about how much that muscle is contracting based on how much the fascia is being mechanically stretched. Does it make sense?
I love that. I love that. It's so helpful.
I mean, it's a bias towards the fascia being the smart one and the muscles just, doing all of the grunt labor, but it kind of works.
It's one integrated system.
Another example of this would be in real life, and not with a metaphor, is like if you've ever stepped off a curb but misjudged the distance of the curb, that has something to do with how much your tensioning system was pulling on the fascia to give you stability as you took that step. But maybe it gave you too much stability or not enough stability because you thought that the step down was bigger than it was or smaller than it was, and you kind of jolted as you hit the ground. That has to do with that really fine neuromuscular fascial system coordinating tensional load and movement through its function via the nervous system, via the muscles, via the fascial and the myofascial expansions.
Is that the same thing as when you go to pick up something and it's way heavier or way lighter than you think it was, and you've like loaded your body to like lift this heavy thing and it's really light and it goes flying when you lift it?
Yep, exactly. Same thing altogether.
All right. Well, so now we know what myofascial expansions are. What happens when things go wrong?
Well, it's basically when things get stuck or there's functional interruptions. So if there's an interruption for the fascia to be stretched that shows what needs to happen to the smooth muscle neuromuscular coordination, then there's some confusion as to what's going on, which may reduce function or cause pain.
Okay, could this be like a scar tissue or injuries?
100%, right? So overtraining, an injury that's a planned injury like a surgery, or an injury like a torn muscle, overuse of something is going to cause things to thicken or become more dense or perhaps lose their capacity for glide and slide. We've talked about this a lot in a lot of our other courses too. Yeah. And then kinds of pathologies that may occur. If you can name a few, there's some fascia pathologies that are conditions of fascia that are oftentimes genetic that can cause things to go sideways or not work as well.
What about hypermobility stuff like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome?
I think that's a really good example of this also. A lot of our proprioception comes from our tensioning of our fascia system. It's so innervated with nerves. It plays a huge role in helping us to understand where our bodies are in space, kind of like where we just talked about stepping off the curb. When you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, your fascia forms differently, and it doesn't have enough collagen type 1, which is the collagen that gives that stability to your fascia that allows you to pull on it, and it translates that force across a distance. When you have more elastin and more stretchy things going on, the fascia is not giving you as much feedback because it gives in too easily, and you have injuries like rolling your ankle or, clumsiness, generally speaking, is something that is recognized as what people who have hypermobility suffer with. They can't quite feel where their body is in space, so they misjudge things all the time.
So interesting.
So I guess a good question for us to ask at this point, as we kind of come around the corner of all of these concepts, is what can we do about it?
Exactly. What can we do about it?
Well, as massage therapists, we're doing something about it, maybe without even realizing it, because we're interacting with these tissues continuously.
Ultimately, this is just another brilliant example of how everything's all connected, but all connected in a really precise way. It's not random. It's not magical. There's a lot of precision in this.
And that's such an important thing to remember, and it's worth studying. And I'm still on my journey to understand myofascial expansions. We named a few, but isn't it true that all of the muscles have some kind of fascial insertion? And if that's the case, then you got to study a lot to really get it into your understanding as to what's connected where. I think for massage therapists, the really important takeaway is to look beyond the boundaries. Like if you're looking at an area, that's an area of pain, it's really easy to think, oh, that's this muscle, therefore that's the muscle that I need to work on. When you understand that the muscle function actually goes beyond its origin insertion story that you may have memorized, and that there's a myofascial expansion component to that, it allows you to look at that whole limb or the whole interaction of the movement. So if, for example, like we talked about the pecs having a relationship with the brachial fascia, that anytime you're dealing with any kind of thing going on with pectoralis major, you include the entire upper arm in your thinking. And vice versa, if there's something going on in the upper arm, that you would then trace that back to maybe some of the muscles that feed into that myofascia.
No, I love that. And some of us learn part of that in massage school, and almost all of us learn the more and more bodies we touch that the point of pain or the actual site of the injury isn't always, certainly not the root cause, or isn't where we need to be spending all of our time in the massage. That so much more can be done to help address what's going on by working distant from the complaint area. And myofascial expansions are a really specific way of understanding how that all works.
It enhances your thinking,
Absolutely.
As you're working. I couldn't agree more. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we hope that you will send us a little message and let us know. But you can also check out more information about Anatomyscapes at anatomyscapes.com. Don't forget, we have in-person and online trainings available to you year-round. So come join us and learn more about the amazing world of fascia.
That's all for now. Be sure to head over to the ABMP CE Center and check out one of our recent courses, Understanding Fascia's Role in Low Back Pain, as well as some upcoming courses we have.
That's right.
I'm Nicole Trombley.
And I'm Rachelle Clauson. Thank you so much for listening.
Anatomy Trains invites you to take your career to the next level with Anatomy Trains Structural Integration, ATSI. We're kicking off the next training this September in Maine under the guidance of Tom Myers and our expert team. Come map the pattern and shape the change in this transformational 3-part certification program. Visit anatomytrains.com for details.